Hey guys, while I've got it on my mind, I want to say a few words about labor theory of value. So, labor theory of value is the theory of value that supports ideologies like communism and socialism. And to break that down, basically the idea is that the unit of value is not dollars or something like that, but the unit of value is hours of labor. And so, really, when you break it down, the world is a natural resource, and the value comes from what people do with it. And so, basically, you can break down the value of things by how many hours have been put into them. And that sounds pretty good at first, like, okay, each person is spending an hour of their time to get a certain amount of stuff done. So that time equates to money, so to speak. Sounds pretty fair. But then the continuation of that is the idea that everyone has the same amount of hours in their life. And so the same amount of hours should mean that you get the same amount of resources. Okay? So you get the same amount of resources as everybody else because you're inputting the same amount of hours as everybody else. So we have a lot of equality and sameness going on here. But where it really breaks down is when you look at the way that it incentivizes things. So the way that people think about this is, all right, well, every hour is not the same. An hour twiddling your thumbs is not the same as an hour of labor. And so they have to differentiate between that. And then the hour unit becomes an average hour of labor based on society or whatever. So it's kind of an ambiguous unit, but at any rate, like what the typical person could achieve in a typical hour. So you've got this ambiguous unit of hour. And then you say, okay, so every hour put towards something productive is basically what that breaks down to. The problem then is, how do you decide what things to make and what things not to make? Who picks all the winners and losers? Who, at the end of the day, sets up what is valuable and what's not? In the labor theory of value, there has to be some entity that decides that, and that would be those who have the quote-unquote means of production. That's one of the things that the communists used to always say is seize the means of production. It's kind of a way of saying bring in communism or whatever and take everybody's stuff, and then we, as the Communist Party or as those officiating this society, will determine what is valuable and what's not. We'll take all those resources, and we'll use them for the things that we want to use them for. So with the labor theory of value, you end up having to have somebody who's sitting in the chair deciding what is valuable for each person, essentially, to spend their time on. And we'll compare that with, say, like a value-added type theory. So the value-added theory says, well, it doesn't really break down to how many hours you put in as even to a productive project. And so let me explain that quick. So the idea of breaking it down to number of hours, so I could create a pair of headphones and spend 2 hours towards that pair of headphones. Okay, say, just for the purposes of thought, an hour's worth $10, so we have $20 put into those headphones. Well, even myself or a friend, somebody creates another set of headphones. Now, they put in 2 hours into that set of headphones. Well, inevitably, they can't be the same headphones, and so somebody's going to have a preference between one and the other. So the headphones that are preferred say, you know what, those ones have about twice as good a sound quality. That person really did a good job on that design. Even though they put in the same amount of work as this guy, that guy over there, he made a set of headphones that are better. Well, the labor theory of value doesn't really have a good way of dealing with that and saying, okay, that's better, so that's worth more. Because the labor theory of value says, okay, they both made a product, they both made something productive, and that product had 2 hours in it, that product had 2 hours in it, so the price is the same. Okay, so then basically what happens is the price doesn't reflect the value. And hopefully eventually somebody says, all right, let's stop making that and start making that. All right. But in a free society, in a society where you've got, say, the value added thing, this guy can still produce those, but he's not going to be able to sell them for the $20, which is going to make his job not very good, because he's only selling his for $10, and that means he's only getting $5 per hour. That guy's getting $10 per hour. Well, the thing that we see is the guy who's making it for the $5 an hour. He starts looking over at the guy who's making $10, and he gets jealous, and he starts saying, you know what? I think it's not right that I put in the same amount of work as he does, and he gets more money. And so you start thinking, my hour is worth the same as his hour. Well, at the end of the day, it doesn't really break down that simply, because even I myself, as a single person, I can put in hours on my project, and some hours aren't worth hardly anything. Nothing was really accomplished. It was just, spinning my wheels or whatever. And another hour can be very productive. So it's not quite as simple as saying his hours are worth more than my hours are. It's saying that there's something that he's doing with his hours, maybe something with his workflow or something that is causing him to be more productive. He's actually produced more value in the same amount of time. And we normally, like I was saying a minute ago, we normally measure that with prices. So this guy's only going to be able to sell his for $10. This guy can sell them for $20, $25, something like that. So the guy over here who's making the $10 headphones, he either needs to get really fast, or he needs to start thinking, okay, well, what's a different job I can do, or how can I do something different so that I create more value with my time? Because at the end of the day, I'm not creating enough value. So it takes the responsibility and the incentive to the individual level. Instead of it being way up high in the government or in some association that has to choose which products are winners and which products are losers, it becomes very personal. So each person needs to decide, okay, how am I going to produce value? And that's really the benefit of a free market or the value-added theory. Instead, I'm seeing a lot of this labor theory of value coming up. One place that you'll see it is in the living wage ideology. And that's an ideology that sounds very attractive. The idea that everybody should be able to earn a living wage. Living wage basically means to make enough money to do reasonably well in society. So, like, to have all your necessities for sure, food, water, shelter, but also some other things like, say, your health products that might not strictly be, necessities, but are things that most people have and would like to have. So that's kind of the idea of living wage, is something that seems reasonably average, low average in society. Everybody who puts in, say, a 40-hour work week should be able to make a living wage. Well, the problem is, if Jeff over here is making headphones that nobody wants, really what he's doing is those headphones, nobody actually buys them because he can't price them competitively, so he prices them how he will, and they end up going into a closet. And if we still pay Jeff that living wage, we're incentivizing Jeff just to stay on his living wage and be content where he's at. We're in reality, every one of those that's headphones that's going into a closet, they might as well be just going right into a landfill because nobody's actually using them. You know, the ones that people are using are the valuable ones. And so we actually have Jeff throwing his life away. And it needs to be hard for him to throw his life away. And it's actually helpful to him to create more value and to actually have real meaning, not just feel like he's got some sense of meaning, but to have real meaning in his life. He needs to be doing something that's valuable and valuable to society. So, and that is the difference, because there's things that are not valued by society that do have real value. That's a topic for another video. I hope this helps kind of break down some of the reasons that the labor system of value gets wrong. Yeah. Again, we see the kind of idea of producing things that end up in the landfill. That kind of thing happened in Russia. You know, millions of people died after the communists took power because there was a lot of wasted resources. And you've got places like China and Venezuela. There's the word. And Venezuela, similar things have gone on. So, yeah, I guess that's all, folks.